Welcome to Inside the Philippines. I'm your host, and tonight we have a story that's going to stick with you. This is Brendan, 57 years old, from Cork, Ireland. Spent his whole life as an electrician, 35 years, with his hands in wire and conduit, the kind of man who built his entire identity around being useful, being the one people called when something needed fixing. But when retirement came, that identity vanished overnight, and Brendan found himself hollow, drifting, desperate for purpose. So he did what a lot of men in his position do. He went searching for it halfway across the world in the Philippines. What he found there, what happened next, and how it all unraveled, well, that's a lesson in what happens when you're so desperate to feel needed again that you can't see what's really being asked of you. This one's about family obligations, cultural expectations, and a man who confused being used with being useful. Here's his story, in his own words. Right, so. My name's Brendan, I'm from Cork, and I spent 35 years as an electrician. Started at 16 as an apprentice, worked my way up to running small commercial jobs, the kind of work where you're solving problems all day, every day. Someone's got a circuit that keeps tripping, you sort it. Building needs rewiring, you make the plan and see it through. That was me. Like, the fella people rang when things went wrong, and I took pride in that, you know? It wasn't just what I did, it was who I was. Retired at 55. Everyone said I was lucky, getting out early with a decent pension. €1,400 a month. Plus, I'd saved up 130,000 over the years. Not rich, but comfortable enough, right? Thought I'd enjoy the freedom. Sleep in, take up a hobby, maybe do some traveling. The lads at the pub kept saying, "Ah, Brendan, living the dream now, boy." And I'd smile and agree because what else are you going to say? But Jesus, the hollowness of it, that's what nobody tells you about retirement. You think it's this reward, this finish line, but then you cross it, and there's just nothing on the other side. The first few weeks were grand, slept late, did some bits around the house, went to the pub more often. But then what? Days just stretched out like empty roads going nowhere. I'd wake up, and there was no reason to get up. No jobs waiting, no calls to answer, no problems that needed fixing. The worst was the pub sessions with the lads. They'd all be talking about work, some nightmare job, a difficult client, a tricky wiring situation, and I'd just sit there with nothing to add. When they'd turn to me and ask what I was up to, there'd be this half-second of panic before I'd say something like, "Ah, sure, I'm retired now, living the dream," and everyone would laugh. But it felt hollow as anything. The jokes stopped coming. I used to be quick with a crack, you know, but there's only so much humor you can mine from doing fuck all. I started wearing my old work boots to the hardware store just to feel like myself again. Pathetic, really, but there it is. I'd walk the aisles looking at wire and fixtures and tools, and for a few minutes I'd feel normal, like I still had a purpose. Then I'd go home to my empty house and remember I didn't. This went on for near 2 years. My daughter Emma was worried about me. She'd ring and I could hear it in her voice, that concern. "Da, are you all right? Are you eating properly? Maybe you should join a club or something." But what club? What was I going to do? Take up fucking knitting? I was 55 years old and I felt like I'd been switched off. One night, deep in a YouTube rabbit hole, and this is God's honest truth, I stumbled onto these videos about retiring in the Philippines. Warm weather year-round, beaches, English speakers everywhere, fellow Catholics, so you'd have that in common, and the big one, you could live well on €1,200 a month. The comments were full of fellas like me, retired blokes from the UK, Australia, America, all saying they'd found paradise, found purpose, found a new life. I watched video after video, beaches and sunshine, smiling faces, cheap beer, this slow, easy pace of life. It felt familiar enough to be safe. They speak English, they're Catholic, they like foreigners, but foreign enough to be escape. A reset button. A chance to be someone new, or maybe just to be someone again instead of this hollow shell wandering around Cork. By February 2023, I'd applied for a tourist visa. 3 months to start, just to see if I liked it, you know? Nobody back home understood. Emma thought I'd lost the plot entirely. "Da, you don't know anyone there? You've never even been to Asia? What are you thinking?" But I couldn't explain it to her. I was drowning in Cork's gray skies, and I didn't know how else to save myself. The Philippines felt like a lifeline, even if I couldn't say why. I told myself it was an adventure. Told the lads at the pub I was going exploring, seeing the world, taking advantage of my freedom. They thought I was mad, but in a good way, like I was being brave. But that wasn't it at all, was it? I wasn't running towards something, I was running away from the emptiness, from the hollow feeling of being useless, from the terror of another year, another decade, of just existing without mattering to anyone. So yeah, that's how I ended up booking a one-way ticket to Dumaguete City in the Philippines. 57 years old, €130,000 in savings, a pension that'd keep me fed, and absolutely no idea what I was walking into. Just knew I couldn't stay in Cork being nobody anymore. Had to be someone, somewhere, even if I had to fly halfway across the world to find out who. Landed in Dumaguete on March 15th, 2023. Stepped off the plane at Sibulan Airport, and the heat hit me like opening an oven door, 32 degrees, humidity thick enough to chew. Within 10 minutes, my shirt was stuck to my back, and I was sweating in places I didn't know could sweat. The airport's tiny, just one baggage carousel, everyone moving at this relaxed pace like there's no rush for anything. Already felt a world away from Cork. Got a taxi to the city center about 20 minutes down this coastal road, with the sea on one side and palm trees everywhere. The driver spoke perfect English, asked where I was from, told me I'd love Dumaguete. Very peaceful, very friendly. Charged me 300, which is what, €5? Couldn't get from one end of Cork to the other for that. The sensory overload was immediate. Jeepneys painted in mad colors, tricycles buzzing everywhere like oversized bees, the smell of grilled fish mixed with diesel fumes. Kids on the street shouting, "Hey Joe! Hey Joe!" every time they saw my white face. I'd never been anywhere in Asia before. Never been anywhere this different, really. It was overwhelming but also kind of exciting, you know? Like maybe this was exactly the jolt I needed. I'd arranged a studio apartment through some expat Facebook group place near Rizal Boulevard, the main waterfront strip. 8,000 pesos a month works out to about €140. The landlady showed me up to this basic room. Fan instead of aircon. Hard single bed, shared bathroom down the hall with 2 other units. But it had a little table, a chair, a hot plate for cooking, and it was a 5-minute walk to the boulevard. Good enough to start. That first week was rough, I'll be honest. Everything felt foreign in a way I hadn't anticipated. The food was strange, too much rice, flavors I couldn't identify, this sweetness in everything. I'd go to the little sari-sari stores and just stare at the shelves, not knowing what half the products were. Had to figure out Gcash for money transfers because nobody uses cards for small stuff. Had to learn that you negotiate tricycle fares before you get in. Had to get used to being stared at constantly, not hostile, just curious, because I was one of maybe 3 white faces in my neighborhood. I'd walk along Rizal Boulevard in the mornings, this long promenade along the sea where locals exercise and vendors sell street food. You'd see old Filipino couples doing their morning walks, students heading to Silliman University, fishermen coming in with their catch. And you'd see them too, the expat men, mostly older, mostly white, mostly with Filipinas young enough to be their daughters or granddaughters. They'd be having breakfast together at the cafes, or walking hand in hand, or sitting on benches while the girl was on her phone. I'd hear the stories whispered over San Miguel at the expat bars. Bloke from Sydney lost his house deposit to a girl he met online. American got taken for 50 grand building, a resort that never opened. British lad found out his exclusive girlfriend had 3 other foreigners sending money. The warnings were everywhere, but they always felt like they were about other people, you know? Desperate fellas, naive fellas, not me. I was smarter than that. I wasn't here looking for a young bar girl. I wasn't going to be one of those cautionary tales, but Christ, the loneliness, that hadn't changed. Different country, same emptiness. I'd sit in my studio at night with the fan whirring and wonder what the hell I was doing. Felt stupid, if I'm honest. 57 years old, sitting alone in a foreign country, no plan, no purpose, just existing somewhere cheaper and warmer, but still fundamentally lost. Sunday morning, March 19th, I went to Mass at St. Catherine of Alexandria Cathedral. Needed something familiar, something to anchor me. The cathedral's beautiful old Spanish colonial style, high ceilings, this peaceful feeling inside despite the chaos outside. The Mass was in Visayan, which I didn't understand, but the rhythms were the same. Stand, sit, kneel, the Our Father, the handshake of peace. For an hour, I felt like myself again. After Mass, I was having coffee at a cafe nearby when this Canadian bloke, Doug, sat down at the next table. We got talking that easy way expats do when they spot each other. He'd been in Dumaguete 5 years, married to a Filipina, seemed happy enough. I told him I'd just arrived, still finding my feet, didn't know many people yet. You should come to the church social, he said. Thursday nights at the parish hall, mix of expats and locals, good people, none of the bar crowd. Nice way to meet folks properly. I almost didn't go. Thursday the 30th, I nearly stayed in my studio. But what else was I going to do? Sit alone counting ceiling tiles? So I walked to the parish hall around 7 in the evening, heard voices and laughter inside, took a breath, and went in. There were maybe 30 people, half foreigners, half Filipinos. Long tables set up, coffee and snacks, people chatting in small groups. I grabbed a coffee and stood there like a spare tool, trying to look comfortable while feeling completely out of place. That's when I saw her. Maria. She was helping organize the refreshments, wearing a simple blue dress, hair pulled back, moving between tables making sure everyone had what they needed. Nothing flashy about her. Mid-40s, maybe, I guessed. She had this quiet, kind face, not trying to catch anyone's attention, just doing her bit. Doug introduced us. Maria, this is Brendan, just arrived from Ireland. Brendan, Maria teaches at the elementary school near my place. We shook hands. Her English was perfect, just a soft accent. We started talking and it felt easy, natural. She asked about Cork, what brought me to Dumaguete, how I was finding it so far. I told her about being an electrician, about retiring, about wanting to try somewhere different. She told me she'd been teaching for 20 years, loved working with kids, lived with her family in a barangay outside the city. No agenda to the conversation, you know, just 2 people talking. She wasn't fishing for compliments or dropping hints about money troubles. She asked thoughtful questions, listened properly when I answered. We talked about faith. She was devout Catholic, went to daily Mass when she could, taught religious education at her school. We talked about family. She supported her mother and helped with her sister's kids. We talked about teaching versus working with your hands, about finding purpose in serving others. An hour passed like nothing. At one point she mentioned, almost casually, that her family's house had some electrical problems. The wiring is very old. Some connections are exposed. I worry during rainy season especially, with the children there. But electricians are so expensive, and we manage somehow. I heard myself say, I could take a look if you'd like. No charge, just happy to help. Her face lit up. Really? Oh, that would be such a blessing. But I couldn't ask you to. You're not asking, I'm offering. I've got nothing but time. And honestly, it'd be nice to do something useful again. First time since I'd retired that I felt that surge, that sense of purpose. Someone needed my skills. Someone needed me. Not some desperate bar girl looking for a payday, but a respectable school teacher with a genuine problem I could solve. We exchanged numbers, she'd message me her address, and we'd arrange a time. Walking back to my studio that night, I felt lighter than I had in months, maybe even years. The hollow feeling hadn't disappeared, but it had eased just a bit. I had something to do, someone to help. Looking back now, I can see that moment for what it was. The hook being set, not with malice necessarily, maybe not even deliberately, but set nonetheless. I was a man drowning in purposelessness who'd just been thrown what looked like a lifeline. Of course I grabbed it. Of course I didn't question whether the rope was attached to anything solid. But I didn't see it that way then. I just saw a kind woman who needed help, and me being the kind of man who gave it. Felt good to be that man again. Felt like maybe, just maybe, coming to the Philippines wasn't such a mad idea after all. Early April, Maria sent me the address via Facebook Messenger. Her family's barangay was called Valencia, about 30 minutes outside Dumaguete Center. I caught a jeepney from the terminal, these mad vehicles painted like carnival rides, open sides, passengers crammed in on benches facing each other. Cost me at 25, maybe 40 cents. And the whole ride I'm gripping the overhead bar as we bounced over potholes, hip-hop blasting from speakers, the conductor hanging off the back shouting destinations. Got off at a intersection where Maria was waiting. She looked different outside the church setting, wearing jeans and a simple t-shirt, hair down, more relaxed. We walked about 10 minutes down this narrow road, past sari-sari stores and houses packed close together, chickens wandering about, dogs sleeping in whatever shade they could find. The heat was brutal, midday sun, but Maria walked it like it was nothing. Her family's house was typical provincial, concrete block and wood construction, tin roof that looked like it had seen better days, maybe 4 rooms total. Small yard with a few plants, laundry hanging on lines, a motorbike parked under a makeshift shelter. You could see 3 generations living there, the kind of setup where privacy doesn't really exist and everyone's in everyone else's business. Maria introduced me to the family. Her mother first, "Call me Nanay," she said, which I learned means mom. Maybe 65, small woman, diabetic she'd mentioned, moving slow but with this warm smile. Her younger brother June, early 30s, friendly enough, works odd jobs from what I gathered. Her sister Grace, late 20s, with 2 kids running around, a boy maybe 6, a girl maybe 4. They all spoke decent English, better than my non-existent Visayan anyway. The welcome was overwhelming. They treated me like visiting royalty. Nanay insisted I sit in the one good chair, brought me a cold Coke, kept saying, "Salamat po, thank you," even though I hadn't done anything yet. Grace shooed the kids outside so they wouldn't bother me. June shook my hand like I'd just saved his life. I'm thinking, Christ, I just came to look at some wiring. But when I saw the electrical setup, I understood the gratitude. The place was a death trap. Old wiring, probably original to the house, exposed connections in multiple places, circuits overloaded to hell and back. They had extension cords, daisy-chained together running to different rooms, outlets held together with electrical tape, no earth connections anywhere. One good spark and the whole place would have gone up. With kids living there, with the rainy season coming, it was genuinely dangerous. I spent the afternoon fixing what I could with the tools Maria had borrowed from a neighbor. Basic stuff, first securing loose connections, replacing the worst outlets, reorganizing the circuit loads so nothing was pulling too much current. Maria stayed with me the whole time, translating when needed, bringing me water, handing me tools. Being back in my element felt like breathing again after months underwater. My hands knew what to do without thinking. The problem-solving, the fixing, the satisfaction of making something dangerous into something safe. Jesus, I'd missed it. By the time I finished for the day, Nane was crying. Actually crying, saying I'd done such a good thing, that God had sent me to protect her family, that she'd pray for me every day. Grace kept thanking me. June kept offering to pay me something, anything. I told them no, absolutely not. I was happy to help. That's what you do, right? You see people in need, you use your skills to help them. They insisted I stay for dinner. Wouldn't take no for an answer. We ate family style at a small table lekon kawali, which is this crispy fried pork, rice, some vegetables I didn't recognize but tasted grand. The kids had warmed to me by then. The little boy showing me his toy cars, the girl giggling whenever I made faces at her. It felt proper, you know, like a real family dinner, something I hadn't experienced in years living alone in Cork. After dinner, Maria walked me to the main road to catch a tricycle back to town. We stood there in the warm evening air, motorbikes buzzing past, karaoke bleeding from a neighbor's house. "Thank you, Brendan," she said. "You don't know what this means to us. My mother, she worries so much about fire, about the children. Now she can sleep." "Ah, it's nothing," I said, glad to help, honestly. "But I'm not finished, need to come back next week to complete the job properly. Some of that wiring needs full replacement, not just patches. I couldn't ask you to do more." "You're not asking. I'm telling you it needs doing, and I'm the Egypt who's offering to do it." She smiled at that, touched my arm briefly. "Then please come Sunday, for lunch after Mass, and you can work after. Is that okay?" Of course it was okay. I had nothing else to do, nowhere else to be. And for the first time since retirement, I felt useful, needed, like I had a purpose again. I went back the next Sunday, and the Sunday after that. It became a pattern. Mass at the cathedral, then out to Valencia for lunch with the family, then an afternoon fixing whatever needed fixing. The electrical work expanded. I rewired half the house properly over 3 weekends, brought in materials I'd bought with my own money because their budget was non-existent. Maybe 3,000 total, €50, nothing really. The satisfaction of doing it right, of making the place safe, that was worth more than the cost. But it wasn't just the work. Maria and I started meeting in town, too. Coffee on her free afternoons, walks along the boulevard, long conversations about everything and nothing. She'd talk about her students, about wanting to make a difference in their lives, about how education was the only way out of poverty for most Filipino families. I'd talk about my years as an electrician, about Cork, about feeling lost in retirement. We'd talk about faith, about God's plan, about finding meaning in service to others. By May, we were seeing each other 3-4 times a week. It felt genuine, unhurried. Nothing like the transactional relationships I'd heard about at the expat bars. Maria never asked for money, never hinted at needing help. She had her teaching job, her family, her faith. I was just this Irish bloke who'd wandered into her life and happened to be useful. But then, one afternoon in late May, sitting at a cafe near the university, she mentioned her mother's medication almost offhand. The diabetes medicine is so expensive. 5,000 pesos every month, and PhilHealth doesn't cover it all. Sometimes we have to choose between medicine and food, you know? But we manage. God provides. 5,000 pesos. I did the math quick, about €80. For medicine that kept her mother alive and functional, I thought about Nane, how kind she'd been, how she'd welcomed me into her home, how she'd cried thanking me for making her family safe. €80 a month to keep her healthy. To me, that was nothing. 2 nights at the pub in Cork. To them, it was everything. "Let me help with that," I heard myself say. "Oh no, Brendan, I wasn't asking. I know you weren't, but I'm offering. Here." I pulled out my wallet, counted out 10,000. That's 2 months. Please let me do this, she protested. Said it was too much, she couldn't accept, I'd already done so much. But I could see the relief in her eyes, the gratitude, the weight lifting. She took the money with tears, said I was a blessing, that God had sent me to her family for a reason. Walking back to my studio that evening, I felt 10 feet tall. I'd solved a problem, helped someone who needed it, used my resources to make a genuine difference. That's what being useful feels like, I thought. That's what purpose is. Should have seen it, shouldn't I? The pattern being established. But I didn't want to see it. I wanted to feel needed. I wanted to believe I was doing good. I wanted to be the hero in someone's story after years of being nobody in my own. A week later, Maria mentioned the roof needed repairs before rainy season, 15,000, couple €100. I covered it without hesitation. Then her nephew needed school supplies and fees, 8,000. Then the water pump broke, 6,000. Each request seemed reasonable. Each problem was genuine. Each time I helped, the gratitude was overwhelming and the satisfaction was intoxicating. I extended my tourist visa another 3 months, paid the fees at immigration, got the stamp, committed to staying through September at least. Cork felt like a previous life, a previous me. Here in Dumaguete, I was useful again, needed again, someone again. Maria and I were properly together by then, though we kept it respectful. She was Catholic, had her teaching reputation to protect. We took things slow. But it was real, I thought. She'd hold my hand walking the boulevard, kiss my cheek when we said goodbye, tell me I was different from other foreigners, that I understood Filipino values, that I respected family. And I did respect it. The Filipino way of family taking care of family, everyone supporting everyone else. It was beautiful, really, different from the Irish way where you stand on your own feet as soon as you're able. This was communal, shared responsibility. I was being brought into that circle, becoming part of something bigger than myself. Looking back now, I can see I was confusing being used with being useful. But in those early months, May turning into June, I genuinely believed I'd found what I'd been searching for. Purpose. Connection. A reason to wake up in the morning. A family that needed me, and a woman who appreciated me for exactly who I was. The hook wasn't just set anymore. I'd swallowed it whole, and I was swimming deeper into waters I didn't understand, thinking I was finally home. By June 2023, Maria and I were properly together. We'd moved past the cautious friendship stage into something I thought was real. We'd go to Mass together on Sundays, have lunch with her family after, spend our afternoons walking Rizal Boulevard or sitting in cafes talking about our future. She was careful about appearances. She's a school teacher in a small community. Catholic, has a reputation to protect. We didn't advertise the relationship, but we didn't hide it either. Early June, she mentioned her nephew's high school enrollment coming up. Grace's oldest boy, the one who'd shown me his toy cars that first day. Smart kid, Maria said, top of his class in elementary, wanted to go to a good private high school. But the fees were €5,000 for the semester, about €400, and Grace couldn't afford it on her wages cleaning houses. Education is the only way out of poverty, Brendan, Maria said, and I could see she genuinely believed it. If he goes to public school, he'll get lost in classes of 60 students. But if he can go to Silliman, he has a chance, a real chance. I didn't even hesitate. €400 to change a kid's life trajectory? To give him opportunities his mother never had? That's nothing. Back in Cork, I'd spend that much on fuck all over a few months. Here, it could actually matter. I'll cover it, I told her. She cried. Said I was too generous, she couldn't accept. Her family was already so indebted to me. But I could see the relief flooding through her. And Christ, it felt good to be the man who could do that, to solve problems, to lift people up, to matter. July brought a turning point. I'd been in the Philippines 4 months, still on tourist visa extensions, and I started thinking properly long-term. I wasn't going back to Cork. What was there for me? Empty house, empty days, lads at the pub who'd run out of things to say to me. Here, I had purpose. I had Maria. I had a life that meant something. So I applied for the SRRV Special Retiree Resident Visa. It's designed for foreigners over 50 who want to retire in the Philippines. You put down a deposit of 50,000, about €900, plus application fees, and you get renewable residency, proper legal status. I could stay indefinitely, build a real life here. The application process took a few weeks. Medical exams, police clearance, paperwork, visits to immigration in Cebu. But by end of July, I had at my SRRV card, proof I was committed to making the Philippines my home. Maria was thrilled, said it showed I was serious, that I wasn't just another foreigner passing through, that her family could trust me. I also upgraded my living situation. The basic studio near the boulevard was grand for a lone man exploring, but if Maria was going to stay over occasionally, if we were building toward a future together, I needed something better. Found a proper one-bedroom apartment for 17,000 monthly, about €300. Still cheap by Irish standards, but nicer. Had aircon, proper kitchen, private bathroom, bit of furniture. A place where Maria could feel comfortable. My monthly expenses climbed to 35,000, 40,000 between rent, food, utilities, transport. €600 or €700. Still well within my pension of 1,400 monthly, which converted to about 90,000. I was still banking 50,000 a month in savings, felt sustainable, felt smart. But the family obligations were intensifying, and looking back I can see the pattern accelerating. Each request seemed justified. Each crisis was genuine. Each time I helped, the gratitude was overwhelming, and I felt like I was doing God's work. August, Grace's pregnancy. She was expecting her third child, and there were complications. The public hospital could handle it. But there were risks, long waiting lists, overcrowded wards. The private hospital in Dumaguete was safer, better care. But they wanted €965,000 for the delivery, about €1,000. Maria was beside herself with worry. Her sister, her niece or nephew, potential complications. How could I say no to a mother and baby's safety? What kind of man would I be if I put money over a child's life? I transferred the $65,000 via GCash that same day. September, June's opportunity. Maria's brother had been working odd jobs, construction, motorbike taxi, whatever came up, barely scraping by. But he'd found a used tricycle for sale, 20,000, about €2,000. If he owned his own tricycle, he could work full-time as a driver, make steady income, help support Nanay, lift himself and the family up. It was an investment in their future independence. I negotiated the seller down to 100,000, then gave John another 2,000 for licensing, registration, and initial repairs. Total 120,000 out of my account. About €2,000. I told myself it was helping the family become self-sufficient, reducing their dependence on Maria's teaching salary, creating sustainable income. Each expense was justified individually. The tuition was investing in a child's future. The medical care was preventing tragedy. The tricycle was creating economic opportunity. But they were adding up fast. Just in those 3 months, June through September, I'd spent nexa 20,000, nearly €4,000, and that wasn't counting the smaller stuff. The groceries I'd buy when visiting, the pasalubong gifts I'd bring back from trips to Cebu. The 25,000 here and there when Maria mentioned someone needed medicine or the electric bill was overdue. By September, I'd been in the Philippines 6 months, and I'd gone through maybe 350,000 of my savings, over €6,000 on top of my living expenses. My account was down from 130,000 to about 15,000. I noticed it, did the math, felt a flicker of concern. But I rationalized it away. I was building a life here, building a family. You can't put a price on that, right? And the warning signs were there. Christ, looking back, they were everywhere, flashing like faulty indicators on a circuit board. But I didn't want to see them. Maria's phone was always face down. Always. When we'd sit at cafes, when we'd be at her family's house, when she'd stay over at my place. Screen down on the table, notifications silenced. She'd say it was out of respect, that she didn't want to be rude checking messages while we talked. I thought it was charming, attentive, not like the young ones glued to their screens. When I'd visit the family house, there'd be new things. A new refrigerator one week, a flat-screen TV the next, nicer furniture appearing. I'd ask about it and they'd say they'd saved up, or gotten a good deal, or a relative overseas sent money. I never pushed it. Filipino families help each other, right? OFW send balikbayan boxes and money home all the time. It's their culture. Construction materials kept appearing too. Bags of cement, lumber, roofing materials. Maria would say they were doing small repairs, fixing things bit by bit, improving the house slowly. Made sense to me. The place needed work. I'd see projects half-started, a new wall section, a roof extension, a bathroom renovation, never quite finished but always in progress. The biggest red flag was when I suggested Maria move in with me properly. We were together, weren't we? I had the SRRV, a nice apartment. We talked about marriage eventually. Why not live together? Build our life in town where it's more comfortable, where she's closer to her school. But there was always a reason to delay. Her teaching contract required her to maintain an address in the district. Her mother's health was declining, and she needed to be close by to help. It wouldn't look proper. People would talk. It might affect her position at the Catholic school. After the school year, maybe. After her mother's diabetes stabilized. After we were more established. I told myself, Filipino culture is just different. More conservative, more focused on family obligations and propriety. Maria wasn't some bar girl willing to shack up with a foreigner for money. She was respectable, educated, devout. Of course she wanted to do things properly. Of course her family came first. That's what I loved about her. Her values, her faith, her commitment to the people who depended on her. But Jesus, I should have seen it. The phone, always hidden. The vague delays about moving forward. The constant family needs that somehow never quite resolved. The money flowing out, but the problems never quite getting solved. I was an electrician for 35 years. I knew how to diagnose a faulty system. But I didn't want to diagnose this one. Didn't want to see the load imbalance. Didn't want to admit the circuit I'd wired myself into was draining me dry, because admitting that meant admitting I'd made a massive mistake. Meant admitting I was lonely and desperate enough to ignore obvious signs. Meant going back to being hollow and useless and alone. And I couldn't face that. Wouldn't face that. So I kept telling myself it was real. That Maria loved me for who I was, not what I could provide. That her family genuinely cared about me, not just my pension. That I was building something meaningful, not being systematically extracted from. September turned into October with me still convinced I was doing God's work, still convinced I'd found my purpose, still swimming deeper into water I couldn't see the bottom of, thinking I was finally home. October 2023 brought the conversation I should have seen coming. Maria and I were at her family's house on a Sunday afternoon. The kids were playing outside, Nane was napping, June was out working his tricycle route. Maria made us coffee, and we sat at the small kitchen table, the sound of a neighbor's karaoke drifting through the warm air. "Brendan," she said, her voice soft, hesitant, "I need to talk to you about something difficult." My stomach tightened. Here it comes, I thought. She's going to end it. Tell me I'm too old, too foreign, too something. "The house," she continued. "It's getting worse. The structure, I mean. Nane's doctor says the dampness is affecting her diabetes, making her infections worse. And with typhoon season coming, I worry the roof might not hold. Grace's children, they're sleeping in rooms with mold on the walls." I looked around. She was right. The place was deteriorating. I'd fixed the electrical, but I couldn't fix the crumbling concrete, the rusted tin roof, the water damage creeping up the walls. It was a Band-Aid on a body that needed surgery. "What are you thinking?" I asked. "We need to rebuild. Properly. Concrete construction, good foundation, proper roof that can handle typhoons. But it's expensive, maybe 500, 600,000 pesos. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I'm so embarrassed to even mention it. You've already done so much." 600,000 pesos. I did the math. About 10,000 euro, nearly a tenth of my total savings. It was a lot. A serious amount. But I was also thinking about what I'd get back. A proper house in the province, lower cost of living than Dumaguete. A place I could actually live in eventually, retire into. An investment in our future together. "How much would you need to make it really right?" I asked. "Not just livable, but good." "I couldn't ask you to, Maria." "How much?" She finally looked at me, tears in her eyes. "Maybe 600,000. But, Brendan, it's too much. The family can manage somehow, we always do." I thought about it for maybe 30 seconds. "I'll do it. But we do it properly. I oversee the construction, make sure it's done right. Good foundation, proper electrical, everything built to last." "Deal?" she cried. Hugged me. Said I was the most generous man she'd ever known, that God would bless me for this kindness, that her family would never forget what I was doing for them. Nanay came out of her room, saw Maria crying, got the story. She grabbed my hands, her small, weathered hands holding mine, and just kept saying, "Salamat, salamat, you saved my family, God bless you." I felt like a hero, like I was finally using my retirement for something that mattered, building a home for people who needed it, creating something lasting, being useful in the most concrete way possible. Construction started in November. I gave Maria 300,000 up front to buy materials and hire workers, about 5,000 euro. The plan was straightforward: tear down the worst sections, reinforce the foundation, rebuild in proper concrete, new roof, proper plumbing and electrical throughout. I visited every weekend to check progress, and Christ, it felt good to be back in project management mode. Directing workers, checking measurements, pointing out issues before they became problems. But then the costs started escalating. Always something. Always reasonable. Always necessary. First month, "Brendan, the foundation is worse than we thought. Need to dig deeper, more rebar, more concrete." Another 80,000 pesos. Second month, material prices went up. Cement, lumber, roofing, everything's more expensive than quoted. Need another 50,000. Third month, "The typhoon roof we planned isn't strong enough for this area. Need better materials. 40,000 more." Fourth month, "Can we add a room for Nane? Her own space, easier for her medical needs, safer. Just 30,000 more." Each request made sense when presented. Each was justified. And I'm watching this house rise from the ground, this proper structure appearing where there'd been a deteriorating shack, and I'm thinking, this is real. This is permanent. This is mine ours as much as anything can be. By February 2024, I'd put in C 800,000 total. €14,000. More than half my total savings gone into concrete and rebar and roofing on land I could never legally own. Because that's the thing about the Philippines. Foreigners can't own land. Only condos, and even then with restrictions. The house was in Maria's name, on her family's land. I knew that going in. Told myself it didn't matter. We were building a future together. When we married, what's hers would be ours. Right? And the house looked good, I'll give them that. Proper two-story concrete construction, new electrical I'd designed myself. Plumbing that worked, roof that could handle a typhoon. Compared to the neighbors' houses, it was a palace. I'd drive up from Dumaguete and feel pride. Look what I built. Look what I provided. But the house wasn't the only drain. The monthly family support had become routine. Maria needed €30,000 every month, about €500 for household expenses, Nana's medicine, utilities, the kids' school supplies, Grace's needs. I'd send it via Gcash the first of each month, like clockwork. Maria's teaching salary apparently went entirely to paying off old debts and her personal expenses. My monthly outflow was now $48,000, $18,000 for my apartment in Dumaguete, $30,000 for family support. My pension converted to about $90,000 monthly, so I was still saving in $42,000. But my savings account was bleeding out. I was down to $70,000 from $130,000 in just 1 year, nearly half my retirement nest egg gone. I noticed, did the math, felt that cold feeling in my gut. But I rationalized it. The construction was a one-time expense. Once the house was finished, costs would drop dramatically. We'd live there, my rent would disappear, provincial living was cheaper, we'd be fine. This was temporary. An investment phase. Building something real. The red flags weren't just multiplying. They were strobing like a shorted circuit, impossible to miss if I'd wanted to see them. The house construction dragged on endlessly. Supposed to finish in December, then February, then April. Always another delay, another issue, another cost overrun. Workers disappeared for weeks. Materials went missing. Progress slowed to a crawl. Maria started canceling our dates more often. Last-minute messages. Sorry, Brendan, family emergency. Nanai's sick, need to stay home. School event I forgot about. We went from seeing each other 3 times a week to maybe once, and even then she seemed distracted, checking her phone constantly when she thought I wasn't looking. She was less affectionate, too. Used to hold my hand walking the boulevard, kiss me goodbye, tell me she loved me. Now it was more perfunctory, mechanical. Like she was going through motions. When I'd bring up moving in together, setting a wedding date, making it official, she'd get vague. After the house is finished. After the school year. After Nana's health improves. Let's wait until we're more established. Always a reason, always later. Always some condition that needed meeting first. And I'd see things at the family house that didn't add up, new appliances I didn't remember funding. A motorbike appearing in the yard, nicer furniture. Maria would explain it away. Relatives overseas sending money. June earning good money with his tricycle. They'd saved up. I wanted to believe it. One Sunday in April, I was at the house checking the electrical work in the new addition. Nana was in her room. Maria was at the market. June's wife mentioned casually, "Oh, are you and Kuya Robert friends? Does he know about the house project?" I stopped what I was doing. "Who's Robert?" "The American Kuya, Maria's friend. He visits sometimes." "What American?" She looked confused, like she'd said something wrong. "I don't know his last name. Older gentleman. Very kind. He brings pasalubong for the kids." I played it casual, said maybe I'd met him at church, couldn't remember. But my hands were shaking as I finished the wiring. Maria had never mentioned any American friend, never mentioned anyone named Robert. I didn't confront her that day. didn't say anything. But that night in my apartment, lying in bed with the aircon humming, I kept thinking about it. Kept telling myself there was an innocent explanation. A colleague. A family friend, nothing to worry about. But I couldn't sleep. Couldn't stop thinking. The ground was shifting beneath me and I knew it, but I didn't want to know it. Didn't want to look down and see how deep the drop was. I'd gone from 130,000 to 70,000 in savings. Put 14,000 euro into a house I didn't own. Was sending 500 euro monthly for family support that never seemed to reduce the family's needs. Had a girlfriend who was increasingly distant, increasingly evasive, increasingly busy with everything except me. I was too invested to quit. That's what I told myself. I put in too much money, too much time, too much of myself to walk away now. The house was almost finished. Once it was done, everything would settle. We'd move forward, make it official, build the life we'd talked about. But Jesus Christ, I should have seen it. Should have diagnosed the faulty connection, should have admitted that the load was all flowing one direction and nothing was coming back. I was an electrician for 35 years. I knew a bad circuit when I saw one. But I didn't want to see this one. Because seeing it meant admitting I'd wired myself into a system designed to drain me dry. And I'd done it willingly, desperately, because being drained felt better than being empty. April 2024. 1 year since I'd first fixed the wiring at Maria's family house. 14 months since I'd met her at the church social. I was 58 years old, half my savings gone, living in the Philippines with an SRRV visa that committed me to staying, in a relationship that was falling apart. But I wouldn't admit it, building a house I'd never legally own for a family that might not actually want me. The circuit was failing. The signs were everywhere, but I kept my head down, kept sending money, kept believing this was all leading somewhere good. Because the alternative that I'd confused being needed with being loved, being used with being useful, was too painful to face. May 2024. 15 months in the Philippines. I was having a beer with Sean, another Irish expat, at a bar along Rizal Boulevard. Tuesday afternoon, quiet. Just us and a few locals playing pool. Sean was from Dublin, been in Dumaguete 3 years, married to a Filipina, seemed to have his head screwed on straight. We're talking about nothing important. Football, the heat, where to get decent fish and chips when he says, casual as anything. Saw your missus the other night. Out in Valencia. Oh yeah, I said, taking a pull of my San Miguel. Yeah, having dinner at that new place near the market. With some older American fella. Looked pretty cozy like. My stomach dropped, but I kept my face neutral. Probably a colleague from school, or maybe a friend's father or something. Maybe, Sean said, but there was something in his tone. A warning, a knowing, a knowing. I finished my beer, made my excuses, went back to my apartment. Tried to watch TV. Couldn't focus. Tried to sleep. Couldn't. Lay there in the dark with the aircon humming and my mind racing. Probably nothing. Innocent. A work thing. Maria had never given me reason to doubt her. Right? But I couldn't let it go. 2 in the morning, I got up, opened Facebook on my phone, pulled up Maria's profile. I'd looked at it plenty before, but never really searched it, you know? Never gone through systematically. Always trusted her. I started scrolling through her tagged photos. Recent stuff I'd seen us at church, at cafes, at the boulevard. But then I went back further. Started seeing posts from months ago I'd never noticed. Privacy settings must have hidden them from me. Or maybe I just hadn't been paying attention. There. A photo from January. Maria at a restaurant. Nice place, candles on the table. Sitting across from a man. White, maybe 63, gray hair, big smile. Tagged as Kuya Robert. The caption from Maria's friend who posted it, sweet couple, with heart emojis. My hands started shaking. I kept scrolling. Found more. December. Maria and Robert at the beach in Cebulan. November. Them at a resort pool. October. Dinner at another restaurant. September. Coffee at a cafe I recognized. The comments were all the same heart emojis. You two are so cute. God bless you both. When's the wedding? 8 months of photos, overlapping entirely with us. With me thinking I was her boyfriend, her only boyfriend, building a future together. I created a fake Facebook profile, took me 10 minutes, used a random name and stock photo. Found Robert's page. It was public, everything visible. His full name was Robert Mitchell, from California, 63 years old, retired insurance agent. And there she was. Photos with Maria going back over a year. Before I'd even met her. Captions about my special lady, about building our future in the Philippines, about blessed to find love again at my age. Recent posts about the house construction, about helping her family, about planning to get married once they sorted out some legal things. The house construction, our house, my 14,000 euros in concrete and rebar. I couldn't breathe. Sat there in my apartment at 3 in the morning, scrolling through this American's Facebook, seeing my girlfriend, my life here, my purpose with another man who thought the exact same things I thought, who was doing the exact same things I was doing. I didn't sleep. When morning came, I messaged Maria. Need to talk. Important. Can you come to my place today? She showed up around noon, looked worried. Is everything okay? You sounded upset. I handed her my phone, showed her Robert's Facebook page, watched her face. She went pale, started crying immediately. Brendan, I can explain. Explain what? My voice was tight, controlled, like I was diagnosing a wiring problem, keeping my emotions in check. Explain who Robert is. Explain why you're in dozens of photos with him. Explain why he thinks you're his girlfriend planning to marry him. He's just a friend, she said through tears. A benefactor. He helps the family sometimes. It's not romantic. Maria, look at these photos. Look at what he writes. Does he know it's not romantic? She couldn't meet my eyes. He's lonely. He wants to believe we're more than we are. But I've never. Brendan, you have to believe me, nothing physical has happened. He just helps the family financially, and I let him think I shouldn't have, I know. But the family needed help, and... How much? I asked. What? How much does he send? Long pause. 40,000 pesos, monthly. But Brendan, you're the one I love. You're the one I want to be with. He's just 40,000 pesos. I did the math. Nearly 700 euro monthly, more than I was sending. Since when? Since before I met you. Since last year. But it's not the same, Brendan. With you it's real. With him it's just what? Just money? Just a transaction. I felt sick. The house. Did he help pay for the house? She nodded, tears streaming. Some, maybe 150,000 total. But most of it was you. The house is because of you. Most of it. Jesus Christ. Is there anyone else? I asked. She hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. Maria, is there anyone else? Maybe 1 or 2 others, but small amounts, just for emergencies, family support. It's not like with you and Robert. It's not relationships. It's just they offer to help and the family needs it. And I felt like I was falling. The room spinning. Everything I built here, everything I believed, crumbling like the old house I'd tried to fix. 1 or 2 others. Small amounts. The casual way she said it, over the next week the truth came out in pieces. Like pulling a rotten wire from a wall, each tug revealing more damage. Robert sent 40,000 monthly, thought they were engaged, visited every 2 months, had helped fund the house construction. There was a German man sending 15,000 monthly, an Australian who sent money irregularly for emergencies. maybe one or two more she couldn't quite remember. And Maria was furious with me for not trusting her. Said I was being possessive, jealous, acting like a Westerner who didn't understand Filipino culture. In the Philippines, she said, family support is everything. These men wanted to help. They offered freely. She never forced them. The family needed support from multiple sources to survive. Was it her fault foreigners fell in love easily and wanted to help? She turned it around on me. You came here empty, Brendan. Hollow. You said so yourself. I gave you purpose. I made your retirement mean something, didn't I? Isn't that worth something? Isn't that real? Even if other people help my family too? And the fucked up thing is, part of me understood her logic. Part of me had been so desperate for purpose that maybe I'd gotten what I paid for. A chance to feel useful, to matter. She'd provided that. The fact that she was providing it to 3 or 4 other men simultaneously was that different. Or was it just efficient? But I couldn't stomach it. Couldn't keep going. I contacted a Filipino lawyer to understand my legal position. The house. Entirely in Maria's name, on her family's land. I had receipts for materials and labor, but no contract, no legal agreement. In Philippine law, those were gifts. I had zero claim to the property. Foreigners can't own land anyway, the lawyer reminded me. Even if we married, the land would stay hers. The tricycle, June's name, his property. My gift. The medical expenses, tuition, monthly support, all gifts, no legal recourse. The lawyer was sympathetic but blunt. You have no case. Everything was voluntarily given. No promises were made in writing. No contracts exist. You can walk away now and save what's left, or you can keep sending money and lose more. Those are your options. I was still hemorrhaging $30,000 monthly in family support. Maria insisted it needed to continue. The family depends on it now, Brendan. You can't just abandon them. They built their budget around your support. Nana's medicine, Grace's children, June's tricycle payments. It all depends on you. You made yourself responsible. You can't just leave. The guilt was crushing. Had I made myself responsible? By helping, had I created an obligation I couldn't escape? Was this utang na loob debt of gratitude cutting both ways? I'd helped them. Now they depended on me. Now I owed them continued support. Or was this just manipulation? Guilt as a tool to keep the money flowing? I couldn't tell anymore. Couldn't separate genuine Filipino cultural expectations from outright exploitation. Couldn't tell if I was being scammed or if I'd just fundamentally misunderstood what I was getting into. May turned into June, turned into July. I kept sending money, kept seeing Maria occasionally, kept telling myself I'd figure this out. But I was dying inside. The relationship was dead, but I couldn't admit it. Too much invested. Too much loss to face. Too much pride at stake. The circuit was fried. Completely failed. But I kept trying to make it work, because admitting it was broken meant admitting I'd wired it wrong from the start. Meant admitting I'd been the fool all those expats had warned me about. Meant admitting the last 15 months had been a lie I'd told myself because I was too desperate and lonely to see the truth. I'd confused being needed with being loved, being used with being useful. And now I was trapped, bleeding money and dignity, unable to let go of something that had never really been mine. August 2024. I cut off all financial support. Just stopped. Blocked the monthly Gcash transfer I'd been sending like clockwork for nearly a year. It was the hardest thing I'd done since losing my identity in retirement. But I knew if I didn't do it then, I never would. I'd bleed out slowly, watching my savings evaporate until there was nothing left but regret. Maria's messages started within hours. First confused. Brendan, the Gcash didn't come through. Is everything okay? Then concerned. Brendan, please respond. Nanai needs her medicine. We're depending on this. Then desperate. Please, Brendan, the family is in crisis. Grace's children need to eat. June can't make his tricycle payments without your help. Then the tone shifted. Angry. Accusatory. I was destroying her family, abandoning them after making them dependent, after promising to help, after building myself into their lives and their budget. How could I be so cruel, so selfish? Her mother's medicine, June's livelihood, Grace's kids' schooling, all hanging in the balance because of my selfishness. She'd tell everyone in the expat community what kind of man I was, she said. Make sure they knew how I'd used her, led her on, made promises I didn't keep. I'd be shamed, exposed. Everyone would know. The guilt was crushing, suffocating. I'd lie awake at night thinking about Nane without her diabetes medication, about Grace's kids going hungry, about John losing the tricycle I'd helped him buy, losing his livelihood. Had I done this to them? Had I made myself responsible, and now was I just walking away? But I knew if I gave in, if I sent even one more peso, I'd never stop. The pattern would continue. The requests would keep coming. I'd be tapped until there was nothing left. I blocked her number, blocked her on Facebook, blocked the whole family, forced myself to go dark. It was brutal, like cutting off my own arm. But it was that or watch myself disappear completely. I moved again. Couldn't afford the Sue 18,000 apartment anymore, not with my savings gutted. Found a basic studio in a less desirable area for a 6,500 monthly, back to where I'd started basically. Fan instead of aircon. Shared bathroom. Hard bed. But it was cheap and I needed cheap now. Cut every expense to the bone. My monthly budget became 25,000 just to survive. Rice, fish, water, electric, rent. Nothing extra. Nothing unnecessary. I'd gone from living comfortably to scraping by, and I'd done it to myself in 18 months. I sat down one night and calculated the full damage. Had to know. Had to face it. The house, 800,000. 14,000 euro into concrete and rebar on land I'd never own. The tricycle, 120,000. 2,000 euro for June's business that was legally his. Medical expenses, 65,000 for Grace's cesarean. Another 1,000 euro. Tuition, 25,000 for the nephew. 400 euro. Monthly gifts over 14 months, averaging 7,000. Call it 20,000 temport thousand. 1,600 euro. Monthly family support for 11 months at 30,000. 30,000 euro total. Total, 7 euro. Total, 7 euro. Total, cane, 25,000 euro. Add in what I'd spent upgrading my living situation, the SRRV deposit, all the smaller expenses I'd stopped tracking. I was down from 30,000 to 40,000 in savings. Nearly two-thirds of my retirement nest egg gone in 18 months. 68,000 euro vanished into a family structure I'd never truly be part of. The depression that followed was worse than post-retirement Cork. In Cork I'd been hollow, but I'd had my dignity. Here I'd been filled with purpose and then gutted, left worse than empty. I'd trusted my judgment, my ability to read situations, skills that had served me 35 years as a tradesman, and they'd failed completely. I'd see other expats walking the boulevard with their Filipinas and wonder, are they all being played? Are some real? Does it even matter? The expat community gossips. Some avoided me, the fool who got taken. Some shared similar stories over beers, their own versions of my disaster. Some seemed to judge me for being stupid enough to fall for it. But slowly, painfully, I rebuilt. Joined a men's group at the church, different from the social where I'd met Maria. Just blokes trying to make sense of life here, supporting each other, being honest about the challenges. Started doing small electrical jobs for expats cash in hand. 10,000 pesos to rewire a condo, 5,000 to fix a circuit board. Nothing major, but it helped stretch my pension. Found purpose in work again, not in relationships, not in being needed by someone who saw me as a resource, just in doing good work, solving problems, using my skills properly. I reconnected with my daughter Emma back in Cork via video calls. Told her everything. She was relieved I was okay, angry I'd lost so much, wished I'd come home. But she understood when I said I needed to stay, needed to prove to myself I could survive this, that I hadn't completely destroyed my retirement, that there was a way forward even after being stupid. I'm 59 now, as I'm telling you this, living modestly in Dumaguete. My pension still comes in every month, 1,400, converting to about 25.70. I live on 25,000, 30,000 monthly. Banking the rest, rebuilding slowly what I destroyed quickly. In 10 years, I might be back to where I started. Maybe. Financially, I'll survive. The pension's enough. The savings will rebuild if I'm careful. But the emotional damage runs deeper. I came to the Philippines looking for purpose and found exploitation. Came looking for love and found a business transaction. Came looking to be useful and discovered I was just being used. And here's what I've learned. What I need you to understand, if you're watching this and thinking about doing what I did, I spent 35 years as an electrician. I understood circuits, loads, connections. I knew how to diagnose a faulty system, how to identify when something was drawing too much power, when the load was unbalanced, when a connection was bad. But I couldn't see I was the circuit being tapped, not a person being loved, a power source being drained. Maria needed a provider. Her family needed a benefactor. Multiple benefactors, apparently. And I needed to feel useful. We all got something out of it, but I confused being used with being useful, confused being needed with being loved. You can't wire yourself into a family that sees you as a power source. You can't build a relationship on being someone's solution to poverty. Because the moment you stop flowing money, the connection dies. The relationship was never about you as a person. It was about you as a resource. That's the lesson, boy. That's what I paid 25,000 euro to learn. I came here hollow, and I left myself wide open. The Philippines didn't scam me. I scammed myself, desperate enough to believe what I needed to believe. Desperate enough to ignore every warning sign because acknowledging them meant going back to being empty and useless and alone. And that was more terrifying than losing my savings. But now I know, being empty is better than being drained. Being alone is better than being used. And purpose has to come from inside, from doing good work and living with dignity, not from being someone's ATM. That's my story. That's my expensive fucking lesson. I hope it helps someone avoid making the same mistake. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Brendan, for sharing your story with us. It takes courage to admit mistakes this honestly, especially when the cost was so high. Brendan's story isn't unique. Studies suggest that between 70 and 85% of Western retirees in Southeast Asia experience significant financial loss through relationships, property deals, or business ventures. The Philippines isn't uniquely predatory. What happens here happens across the region wherever desperate men meet survival-focused families, and the power dynamic of wealth creates extraction relationships. Here's what's important to understand. Filipino family obligations are genuine cultural expectations, not always manipulation. In Filipino culture, supporting extended family is non-negotiable. When you work abroad as an OFW, an overseas Filipino worker, you send money home. It's expected. It's how millions of families survive. And to many Filipinas, a foreign boyfriend or husband is essentially another form of OFW, a resource, a lifeline for the family. Some Filipinas genuinely love their foreign partners and also expect financial support. Some see their foreign partners primarily as family salvation. Most exist somewhere in the complicated middle. And some, like Maria apparently, are running what amounts to a business multiple foreign boyfriends, each sending money, each thinking they're in an exclusive relationship heading toward marriage. The lesson isn't avoid the Philippines. The lesson is don't retire into a relationship. Retire into a life. Build community first. Build purpose first. Build identity first. Find meaning in your work, your hobbies, your friendships, your faith, whatever gives you purpose beyond being someone's provider. Only then, from a position of wholeness instead of hollowness, can you recognize love versus need. Can you tell the difference between someone who values you as a person and someone who values you as a resource? Brendan came to the Philippines broken and looking to be fixed. That made him vulnerable. That made him unable to see what was obvious to everyone else. And it cost him 25,000 euros and 18 months of his life. Don't be Brendan. Or if you're already on Brendan's path, recognize it now before the damage gets worse. Cut your losses. Rebuild. Find your purpose somewhere other than in being needed by someone who sees you as a circuit to tap. Thanks for watching. Inside the Philippines. If this story helped you, please subscribe and share it with anyone who might need to hear it. These stories matter. These lessons are expensive. Learn from them. Stay smart out there, and we'll see you in the next one.